Hey guys, it's AJ and welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, me and Sarah are making content and videos about all things journaling and stationery, but also our progress towards launching our very own art shop. So today is actually a very rainy day here in Toronto, so I thought it'd be the perfect opportunity to pull out and share with you guys some of my favorite fountain pens and inks that I've used for the month of May. If you've seen other currently inked videos here on YouTube, this one should be similar to those, just a little bit smaller in scale. I'll be going through 3 pens in total, 2 of which are newer that I got recently, and 1 which is an older one but I haven't picked it up in a while. Then I'll be sharing some of the inks that I've paired with them, also some new and some old. For the inks, I picked out some fun ones which are spring themed. I'll be doing a little swatch test for each of the inks and show you guys my method of how I log and do my ink swatches. Then we'll fill each pen with a different ink and we'll do some writing tests, and I'll talk about how I use the pens in my day-to-day. So whether you're into journaling, planning, collecting pretty writing tools, or even if you're new to the world of fountain pens and inks, I hope you find something in this video that inspires you. Okay, let's get started. So I've been collecting fountain pens and inks for only a little over 2 years now, but I have amassed quite a collection that I've grown to love. In my journal, I like introducing new inks into my rotation. I currently switch pens and their respective inks every day, so I ensure I'm using and enjoying all my pens equally. I also like to add a little note of the pen and ink that I used at the bottom of the page, so when I flip through my journal, it's just a nice way to add some continuous element to every page. And whenever I have a pen run out of ink, I fill it either with the same color if I'm liking it that month, or I switch it to a new color to test it out. My current main pen collection right now contains these 9 pens that I store in this pen holder. I'll probably be doing a more in-depth video about all the pens in my collection, but for today I wanted to introduce 2 of my newer fountain pens that I picked up recently and 1 older one that I brought back into my rotation. So for my first pen, this is the TWSBI 𝖧 in this really lovely Caffè bronze color. I do own another TWSBI 𝖧 in the rose gold cream color that I also really love, and that one has a fine nib, and this color was released sometime last year, and I knew instantly when I saw it that I needed it. The fine nib in the 𝖧s does run quite a bit thicker than other fines that I have in my pen collection, so I was curious to try an extra fine nib this time. My handwriting is pretty small, so I think I've been leaning more towards an extra fine lately. I also loved how this one had a bronze colored nib to match the color of the pen body, and I also love that these pens have such a large ink capacity because of this really cool mechanism of how it takes in the ink and how I don't need a separate converter. I've had this pen inked up with Dominant Industries Ginger Chicken, a special collaboration ink that they did with Wonder Pens, a stationery shop here in Toronto, which is a really vibrant orange ink, but I thought for April and May I would try to lean more towards something a little less bold and more in line with something a little bit more subtle. I was a bit nervous to buy this pen in extra fine before trying it out because I read on Reddit and in the reviews that the extra fine nib was actually pretty comparable to the fine nib, but when I tried it out for the first time after getting it in the mail, it was actually noticeably writing thinner and had a little bit more feedback than the fine, which I was pleasantly surprised by. I have these pens side by side in my pen holder, and whenever I look at them, I get a lot of joy because I just really love the pairing of this Caffè brown color and the cream color, and I really love both the bronze and the rose gold metal finishes on the pens. I'm really glad I got this in extra fine because it does allow me to have a little bit more variation in line width. Maybe I can use the fine in titles or more bold things, and I can use the extra fine in my journal. My second new pen is the LAMY Safari Vista pen. I've actually never gotten a LAMY pen or tried their inks before, so this was my first exploration into this brand. I was first intrigued by the design of the pen. I love transparent demonstrators so you can really see the interior, the anatomy of the pen, and most importantly you can see the lovely ink that you put inside. I've heard a lot of good things about this pen, and that it's also a good pen to start with if you're a beginner to fountain pens, and particularly because of the shape of the triangular grip section near the nib. The grip on the LAMY Safari pen is primarily designed to guide a beginner fountain pen user into a more ergonomic and comfortable writing grip. So it helps people learn proper finger placement, which will help a lot in reducing hand strain when you're writing for an extended period. And as a designer, I really love this because the triangular shape really encourages a natural grip that promotes proper hand posture. It prevents cramping and fatigue, which I'm really prone to, I feel like, when I'm writing. So it really helps me learn how to hold the pen in a way that allows for more comfortable writing. And this helps translate to how I write with my other fountain pens as well. So it was really cool adopting this specific grip style. The grip did take a bit of getting used to since I've never written with a pen that had an explicit grip to help with ergonomics. I actually have a LAMY Safari before, and I totally forgot about it, but it was given to me by a friend who was looking to get rid of some of their pens in their collection, and since I got it, I actually haven't touched it. But I realized it came with a fine nib, which is nice because now I also have variation in line weight if I wanted to choose between a fine or extra fine. I do really like the transparent design. I like how the clip looks, and I like being able to see the color of the ink that I have inside this pen. So yeah, I'm really glad that I picked this up, and I'm looking forward to inking it up. My third and last pen that I've been using in May has been this Jinhao 82 pen that I got off of AliExpress. It's a dupe where it comes to style of the Sailor Pro Gear Slims, but it's at a much more affordable price. I got a few of their pens and decided to make some Frankensteins by mixing the pens and caps around. And also these little parts on the top and bottom of the cap and body, you can take them off by either just pulling on it a bit or screwing it off, and it's really easy to switch around. I've owned these pens for a while now and used them a bit when I first got them, but then put them away and forgot about them and didn't get around to using them again until this month. I have one or two in a fine nib and the rest in extra fine nibs. They are surprisingly smooth and consistent writers with a nice amount of feedback. And that is the final pen. I'm so excited to get used to writing with these pens more and see where they fit best in my day-to-day. I also like how each of them look pretty different from the next, and stylistically they have a lot of personality. A couple inks that I started using in May include some more springtime and bright colors. I tend to typically lean towards using pretty neutral colors like browns and blacks and more toned down greens, but this month I wanted to explore inks that I wouldn't normally gravitate towards as an everyday ink color. For these inks, I wanted to choose 3 inks each from a different brand. The first one that I've chosen to pair with the Jinhao 82 is from the Pilot Iroshizuku ink collection in the color Ajisai. I own a few bottles of the Pilot Iroshizuku inks, and this one is definitely one of my favorites. It's a very beautiful purpley blue, and Ajisai in Japanese translates to hydrangea, and I thought this was the perfect color to represent the vibrant and deep color of the hydrangea flowers. I also want to take a moment to appreciate the Pilot Iroshizuku ink bottles. I really love the design and how it has this little divot in the bottom to ensure you're getting every last drop out of the bottle. And the reason I picked this ink color for my Jinhao 82 was not only because it was a really nice springtime color, but also because it actually perfectly matched the body of the fountain pen. The second one is by Dominant Industry, and it's in the color Chicken in the Sky with Diamonds. And this one is another collaborative ink like Ginger Chicken that Dominant Industry had with Wonder Pens, and it's this really nice teal, blue, green color. And also like Ginger Chicken, this ink is inspired by the owner's cat named Chicken and his really nice blue-green eyes. The last ink that I've been using a lot this month is by the brand Sailor and is in the color Sakura, which I thought was totally perfect because we are just in the tail end of cherry blossom season, and it's this really cute peachy pink color. I've actually never really been a fan of pink growing up, but I'm just starting to lean into it a bit more, especially now that we're in spring, and I wanted something that would really stand out on a page. I'm also really loving this bottle design, and I like how it has an illustration of a sakura on the front, and it's pretty minimalistic, and it really shows off the color of the ink. Okay, now that I've given you guys a preview of the inks, next I'll be doing some swatching. And I'll give a little bit of an intro into my method of how I log my fountain pen ink swatches. So I have this leather ring binder, and I use this binder to kind of track different things like habits, to-dos, to leave reviews on things I ate or content that I've watched like movies and TV shows. But I also use this as a place to have a quick reference into the ink swatches that I've done in the past. I still have yet to catalog all of them, but I think in the future it will be nice to have this as a reference, because then I can always look back to it if I want to choose a new ink to add back into my rotation. To help with this, I designed this custom journal insert that I made and printed for this ring binder. The printer paper that I use for these custom inserts is by the brand Kokuyo, which is a brand of paper that Sarah recommended to me because it tends to do pretty well when written on it with fountain pen inks. It doesn't bleed through, but it does show a little bit if you are doing swatches like these, but in general, it doesn't really show too much if you're just writing. To help with the swatches today, I have this glass dip pen, which is also by the brand Jinhao, and I use it whenever I'm testing or swatching inks. I like that it has a cap for it, just like the Jinhao 82 pens, so it can protect the delicate glass tip when it's not in use. I also have this other glass dip pen in this cool smoky black design, but it doesn't write that well as the Jinhao, and I'm also just paranoid that I'll break the glass tip because it doesn't really have any protection other than this little rubber cover, so I haven't been picking it up that much. First, I'll swatch the Pilot Ajisai ink. In my binder, I've been grouping up ink swatches that are by the same brand, and for the Pilot Iroshizuku, I actually haven't started a page for it, even though I've owned their pens for a while. So this will be a nice reminder for me to get to finishing the cataloging of those swatches. I usually take out the swatch page out of the binder because I am left-handed and writing over the binder rings is pretty annoying because it gets in the way. So once I get a page out, I'll also make sure to put a scrap piece of paper just in case it does bleed through, but usually it doesn't. And then I'll dip the whole pen in the ink bottle and then make sure I take off any excess on the edges of the bottle so it doesn't leave a big puddle on my swatch page. Then I have this little ink bottle on the left, which I use to fill in with the swatch. This Ajisai color is so pretty and pigmented, and once it dries, it really does remind you of the subtle gradient in hydrangea flowers. And once I finish doing the swatch, I like to do a little writing sample in this blank space. Then I fill in the name, brand, and the date that I swatched it. And when I put my Jinhao 82 next to it, it's almost an identical color match to the pen's body, which is really cool. Next is the Dominant Industry ink Chicken in the Sky with Diamonds. I did previously have a Dominant Industry ink page going before, but it kind of got ruined by some water, so I decided to recreate a new page for those inks. So again, I'll just dip my pen in and make sure there isn't too much ink on the glass tip. Then I'll color this little ink bottle on the left. This is such a pretty color. Writing with more colorful inks has been a little bit daunting because I'm just so used to writing with neutral colors, but I think it just makes spreads much more fun to look at and less mundane. Once this one dries, it doesn't change too much, and it's this nice teal color. I'll be inking all of the pens up with their respective colors later, so you'll be able to see a writing sample of how they look in use. Last is the Sailor Sakura color. I have several Sailor inks, all from the Shikiori collection, but this is the first one that I have in their Sailor Manyo collection. The ink looks really transparent in the bottle, and I just love looking at it. And this is also the first really bright one that I've gotten from Sakura. The other ones that I have are pretty muted and subtle greens or purples, so this was a nice change. Oh my god, that just screams spring to me, and I think it's the perfect cherry blossom color. Swatching inks is always so much fun, and I really like seeing the amount of shading, gradients, and undertones that come out once the inks are dry. Now comes the fun part of filling each pen with the respective ink. So we'll start in reverse order, this time starting with the Sailor Sakura ink, which will fill in the TWSBI 𝖧 pen. I really love the mechanism in the TWSBI � because, like I said before, the ink capacity is just enormous compared to standard converters like in the LAMY or in the Jinhao, and it's as easy as just twisting the end to have the plunger inside go up or down. So I'll go ahead and dip the tip into the Sailor ink and twist it to start filling. I'll just fill it about 1/4 of the way up, which I think is plenty. You'll often notice with fountain pens, not just with the TWSBI �, that there will be an air pocket in the ink chamber and you won't get a full fill of ink in the first try. So my solution to this is to flip the fountain pen upside down so the tip is facing upwards, then twist the plunger down to force out the air through the nib. Just be careful because sometimes there are some droplets of ink that leave the nib, so make sure you have either a paper towel or the actual ink bottle so it can drip back in. And now that will let me get a full fill if I choose to add more ink into the pen. The ink looks so cool because it's transparent and because the body of the TWSBI is also transparent. And when doing a writing sample, the extra fine feels really smooth but still has that little amount of feedback that is just enough for me. And I'll also bring back the glass pen to do a little swatch on the side. The ink still needs a little bit more time to dry, so I'll show what it looks like at the end. Comparing this to the TWSBI � cream pen that I have in the fine nib, the difference in the line weight between the two pens is pretty noticeable to me. And I especially notice it being different in the amount of feedback because the fine nib is ultra smooth and there is basically no feedback. The ink looks so beautiful on the page, and I can imagine using this not only for writing a journal entry, but also for days where, say, I'm using just brown or black inks, and I can use this to add little annotations for photos or to add little doodles. Next is the Dominant Industry Chicken in the Sky with diamonds that I'll be inking in the LAMY Safari Vista pen. So the mechanism in this is similar to the TWSBI �, only that it's in this little converter that's inserted into the nib of the pen. So to access it, you have to screw the bottom half off. Then you can dip the tip of the pen into the ink and twist the end of the converter to start filling it with ink. So the same thing happened with this converter where there's some air trapped inside, so we're just going to use the same method that I used on the TWSBI � to push the air out so we can get a fuller fill. I tend to notice with extra fine pens that the color doesn't come out that pigmented, which is obvious because if the line is thinner, it'll be harder to see the shading of the ink. But I think this pen is still really nice to write with, and the teal comes out very pigmented on paper. I also have this ink in my Pilot Prera, and that one is in a fine nib, and you can really see the pigment in that one. I accidentally made these swatches a little bit too wet, so you can see it through the Tomo River paper in the Hobonichi, but that's okay. And comparing this to my other LAMY Safari in black, which has a fine nib, you can also kind of tell the difference in the line weight. It is very minimal, but you can notice it. But I also really like how smooth this one writes. Last but not least is the Pilot Iroshizuku Ajisai ink that I'll be filling in my Jinhao 82. This pen also has the same method of filling the pen as the LAMY, where you have to screw off the bottom half to reveal the converter inside. After I've inked that one up, it's time to do the final writing test. Ajisai is just so pretty and vibrant on paper. It's the perfect in-between of purple and blue, and when it dries, it's so nice to look at. Just look at how perfectly it matches the color of the pen. It was a lot of fun trying out some new pens and inks this month. Like I mentioned before, I'll most likely be posting a fountain pen tour in the future where I go over my entire fountain pen collection and inks, so stay tuned for that. So those were my current favorite fountain pens and inks for the month of May. Collecting fountain pens and inks has been so much fun, and I think it makes journaling so much more enjoyable. I'm so excited to be bringing these pens and inks into my day-to-day rotation, and I hope to do more of these videos whenever I pick up some new pens and inks in my collection. I'd love to know what you guys are using right now in terms of pens and inks, or if you too also found some new favorites for the season. Leave them down in the comments. Thanks for watching and hanging out with me. If you found this helpful or inspiring, leave a thumbs up, and we'll see you guys in our next one. Bye!